A bad day isn't one bad thing happening to you. It's one bad thing you never got a chance to close, and there is a very specific difference between those two things. One bad thing is an event, it happens, it passes, it's over. One bad thing that never gets closed follows you into the next hour, the next meeting, the next conversation, quietly coloring all of it, even after the original moment is long finished. 5 rituals. None of them take more than a couple of minutes. None of them require you to change your schedule, your job, or anything about your actual day. What they change is something almost nobody thinks to manage on purpose: the transitions between the parts of your day, and the handful of specific moments where a normal day quietly tips into a bad one without you ever consciously deciding it should. Stay with me until ritual number 5, because number 5 is the one that explains why a day using all 5 rituals ends completely differently than a day using none of them, even when the actual events of both days were identical. Without it, the other 4 are useful. With it, they become the difference between a day that drains you and a day that simply ends cleanly, the way it's supposed to. But first, ritual number 3 is the one that's going to surprise you, because it happens before your day has even started, and it has nothing to do with your morning routine, your to-do list, or anything you'd normally think to prepare in advance. Let's begin. Most of us think a day goes badly because of what happens in it: a difficult meeting, a frustrating commute, a hard conversation. That's true as far as it goes, but it misses the actual mechanism behind why some people absorb a rough morning and are fine by lunch, while other people carry that same rough morning, unresolved, straight through to bedtime. Japan has a specific word for what's usually missing in that second version: kejime, a clear, deliberate marking of a break or transition between two states. Not just moving from one thing to the next, but consciously closing one before beginning the other. Without kejime, transitions blur together. The stress of the commute bleeds into the meeting, the tension of the meeting bleeds into how you talk to your family that evening, and none of it ever actually gets marked as finished. There's a second concept behind this too: ichigo ichii, the idea that this exact moment will never occur again in quite the same way, which, applied to a difficult moment specifically, becomes a strange kind of relief. It, too, is only happening once. It doesn't have to be carried forward. 5 rituals, each one a small, deliberate marker placed at a specific point in your day, working together to make sure nothing that happens to you gets to linger longer than it actually needs to. Let's go through every single one. You've probably walked through dozens of doorways today without a second thought: into your house, out of your car, into a meeting room, back to your desk. Stay with me here, because the fact that these transitions feel like nothing is actually the entire problem. A doorway is a genuine boundary between two different contexts, and most people cross it carrying whatever state they were just in, completely unmarked. Here's the mechanism. Emotional and cognitive states don't naturally reset just because your physical location changed. Stress from a difficult phone call doesn't end because you walked into a different room. It simply travels with you, unmarked, unless something interrupts it. A deliberate pause at a threshold, even one full breath, one conscious beat before crossing it, functions as a small circuit breaker, giving your nervous system an explicit cue that says that context is finished, this one is beginning, rather than letting one context blur directly into the next without any signal at all. This is kejime in its most literal, physical form: a doorway used as an actual marker of transition, not just a physical opening you pass through unconsciously. In many traditional Japanese homes, this is reinforced structurally. Removing your shoes at the genkan, the entryway, isn't only about cleanliness, it's a physical, repeated ritual that forces a pause at exactly the threshold between outside and home, every single time, whether you consciously intend it to or not. The shift, the same stressful commute or difficult call, carried unmarked through your next doorway, quietly colors whatever comes next. The identical stress, marked with one deliberate pause at the threshold, actually gets a chance to end where it happened instead of following you into the next room. That is ritual number 1. Now, ritual number 2 is where this gets interesting, because it addresses a decision most people remake dozens of times throughout the day without ever noticing they're doing it. Most people carry a loose, evolving sense of what matters today that shifts constantly, reprioritized after every new email, every interruption, every small fire that flares up. This constant redeciding feels like responsiveness. It's actually a significant, hidden source of the exhaustion that makes an otherwise normal day feel like it drained you completely. Here's the mechanism. Decision fatigue, the well-documented decline in decision quality and willpower that accumulates across a day of choices, isn't only produced by big decisions. Small, repeated reevaluations of what matters most right now, done reflexively every time something new lands in your inbox, add up to a surprisingly large number of micro-decisions by the end of a normal day, each one drawing from the same limited daily reserve. Deciding your 3 priorities once, at a fixed morning point, and treating that decision as settled for the rest of the day removes dozens of these micro-decisions before they ever have the chance to happen. The shift, the same busy day, with priorities redecided reflexively every hour instead of settled once in the morning, quietly spends far more of your limited daily decision-making capacity than the version where that question was only ever answered a single time. That is ritual number 2. Now, ritual number 3, the one I mentioned at the very beginning, the one that happens before your day even starts. Slow down here, because I know what you're thinking, that you can't possibly plan a response to something that hasn't happened yet. Here's what this ritual actually is, and why it works even though the specific frustration is always unknown in advance. Here's the mechanism. Every day reliably includes some form of first frustration, a delayed train, a snapped-at comment, a piece of unexpected bad news, a small mistake you catch yourself making. The specific trigger is unpredictable. The fact that one will occur is almost guaranteed. Most people handle this moment by improvising a reaction in real time, while already frustrated, which is, physiologically, one of the worst possible conditions under which to make a good decision, because stress narrows cognitive flexibility right when you need it most. This ritual sidesteps that entirely. Before the day starts, during that same fixed morning point as ritual 2, you decide, in the abstract, how you intend to meet the day's first real frustration, whatever it turns out to be. Something as simple as, when it happens, I'll take one slow breath before I respond. The specific trigger stays unknown. The response is already chosen, calmly, in advance, by a version of you that wasn't yet frustrated, which means when the actual moment arrives, you're not improvising a reaction under stress. You're simply executing a decision a calmer version of yourself already made for you. The shift, the same frustrating moment, met with a response improvised in real time under stress, tends to escalate. The identical moment, met with a response decided calmly in advance, gets absorbed instead of amplified, and the difference has nothing to do with the trigger itself, only with when the decision about how to respond actually got made. That is ritual number 3. Now, ritual number 4, and this one addresses the specific point in the day where stress tends to quietly accumulate past the point anyone notices it happening. Most people pause when they feel like they need to, which sounds reasonable, but has a specific flaw. By the time stress feels bad enough to prompt a pause, it's often already accumulated well past the point where a short pause can fully reset it. This ritual removes that judgment call entirely. Here's the mechanism. Stress accumulates across a day in a way that isn't always consciously felt in real time. Cumulative, low-grade tension can build for hours before it registers clearly enough to prompt someone to actually stop. A fixed pause, scheduled at the same clock time every day regardless of how urgent or calm the day feels in the moment, catches this accumulation early and consistently, rather than relying on you to notice you've already crossed some invisible threshold. 2 minutes, a few slow breaths, a short walk to a window, simply stepping away from a screen, is enough to interrupt that buildup before it compounds further into the afternoon. The non-negotiable part matters as much as the pause itself. A pause taken when there's time gets skipped precisely on the days it's needed most, because the busiest, most stressful days are exactly the days that feel like there's no time to spare. A pause fixed to a specific time, treated as non-negotiable regardless of how busy the day feels, is the only version reliable enough to actually happen on those exact days. The shift, the same accumulating midday tension, left unaddressed until it's uncomfortable enough to notice, tends to compound into the rest of the afternoon. The identical tension, interrupted by a fixed 2-minute pause before it's even consciously felt, resets before it ever gets the chance to build into something bigger. That is ritual number 4. Now, ritual number 5, the one I told you at the start, explains why the other 4 actually work together instead of just individually helping. Stay here, because this is the most important thing in this entire video. This last one isn't really about the day's events at all. It's about giving the whole day, as a unit, the same Kejime, the same deliberate marking of transition, that ritual 1 gave to individual doorways throughout it. Here's what happens without this. Most days simply trail off. You stop working when you're tired, or when it's late, without any specific moment that marks the day as actually, deliberately concluded. Left this way, unfinished tasks and unresolved moments from the day don't get a clear endpoint either. They simply carry forward into the evening and, often, into how well you sleep and how the next morning begins. This is the same Zeigarnik effect mechanism behind unfinished tasks lingering in the mind. A day with no deliberate closing marker is, structurally, a very long list of open loops that never got told they were allowed to close. A specific closing ritual, writing 3 sentences about the day, a brief acknowledgement of what happened without judgment, even something as simple as a fixed phrase said to yourself signaling, "Today is done," gives the day an actual endpoint, independent of whether everything on the list got finished. This is what makes the other 4 rituals compound rather than simply exist as 4 separate, disconnected good habits. Ritual 1 marks the small transitions within the day. Ritual 5 marks the transition out of the day entirely, closing everything Ritual 1 didn't fully catch, so tomorrow starts genuinely fresh instead of quietly inheriting today's unresolved residue. The shift, the same day, left to simply trail off into evening, carries its unresolved moments forward without you ever consciously choosing that. The identical day, given one deliberate closing ritual, gets marked as genuinely finished, and a day that's actually finished doesn't have anything left to quietly hand off to tomorrow. That is ritual number 5. Here is everything in one breath. Pause at every doorway, marking the transition instead of carrying one context unmarked into the next. Decide your day's 3 priorities once, at a fixed morning point, and don't relitigate them all day. Decide, in advance, how you'll meet the day's first frustration, before you actually know what it will be. Take a fixed, non-negotiable 2-minute pause at the same time every midday, regardless of how busy it feels. And close the entire day with one deliberate ritual, marking it finished regardless of what did or didn't get done. 5 rituals. None of them require rearranging your schedule. None of them take more than a couple of minutes, combined. Every single one begins today, the next time you walk through a door. A bad day was never really about what happened in it. It was about how much of it never got a chance to close, quietly following you from 1 hour into the next, one context into another, until the whole day felt heavier than the sum of what actually occurred. Now you have 5 small ways to make sure that stops happening. So here's what I want from you before you close this video. Right now, tell me in the comments which one of these 5 rituals your day is most missing. Is it number 1, do you carry stress through every doorway completely unmarked, all day long? Is it number 3, have you ever tried deciding your response to frustration before it happens, instead of improvising in the moment? Is it number 5, does your day usually just trail off into evening with nothing that actually marks it as finished? Tell me the number, 1 through 5, in the comments right now, because naming it is the first step, and someone reading your comment might recognize their own day in it and finally decide to change it tomorrow. If this changed how you think about your day, send it to the one person you know who always seems to end the day more drained than the actual events of it would explain. They're 5 small rituals away from finally finding out where all that extra weight was actually coming from. I'll see you in the next one.